Gabriel, Cousens, I am so glad you came here today. And I am delighted to hear your spiritual journey and about your book. And I am very intrigued with the title of your book, Into the Nothing. And I just want to hear everything I can about your spiritual journey. So please go on with your prayer that you said you would like to do.
Okay, so the prayer is about merging the heavens and earth and heart and mind. It's like that's what's missing in today's world. We call Chokmah Halev, the wisdom of the heart. Okay, so this is for everyone to kind of get. Here it is. Shinikud Kudashabrihu Ushinite Be Uraya Shinuki Belovke. Yidashlam Shem Kuzrael Kolam Amen.
Amen.
Feeling the merging of the heart and mind, heavens and earth. Okay.
All
Ready.
right. Is that, what language is that?
Hebrew.
Hebrew. Okay. I want to know you. Tell you that I grew up as a Lutheran Jew.
Huh. That's an interesting combination.
Well, my stepfather was a Holocaust victim, and he came from Berlin. And so I was raised with his family from Israel. So there was a mixture of a lot of different cultures and yet a lot of atheism as well. So I felt, because of his family that were all executed and everything, it was very difficult for him in life, a terrible case of PTS, but I think that I learned so much from him, and without even knowing it, he was a life teacher of spirit. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I lost 70 relatives in World War II. I lost 70 of my relatives.
Okay.
Because I'm really a first-generation immigrant. So my father actually came from the border, actually, we call Bialystok, of Poland and Russia. It was really Russia at that time. He walked across Europe in 1918.
Wow.
He came to the U.S. So
interesting.
Yes.
So tell me about Kabbalah, if you would please, because I have always been intrigued by it and I would like to know more about it. I will get to your book, I promise, but I also want to know about some wisdom from you and your knowledge.
So the key thing, I talk about 4 levels of understanding, okay, that we have. Direct, literal, and a deep interpretation, but still literal, and then allegorical, and then sod, which is known as spiritual. And I divide sod into 2 levels, metaphysical and direct spiritual, which is what my book is. Kabbalah primarily is practiced as metaphysical, okay? And it's a very deep understanding of the energies of how things are kind of put together and how to work with those energies. I think that's probably the pulling that together in 2 sentences. But it also talks about the tree of life, when we really understand the tree of life, the 3 pillars of the tree of life. It is an energetic that helps us create complete balance in our lives. There's 32 pathways, and when we balance all those, there's a whole spiritual path in that way. So that would be kind of a sense of it. So there's certain practices you do, certain things you do. But the most important thing in today's world is putting the name of God in yourself as the tree of life. Why is that so important? Because we're dealing with a tremendous amount of confusion, spiritual, mental, emotional confusion that we're seeing clearly in the United States, but around the world. It's not unique to the United States. And it is our protection, because it creates a field of light around you. So Kabbalah is working on that level of creating field of life, putting the name of God on you so the name of the beast can't be put on you, so to speak. So but you're not thinking about the negative, you're thinking about creating light and turning your body into a living tree of life. So it's a way of living in the world where you're creating light, and in a sense, you create a field of light all around you. And that's the kind of basic. There are different kinds. There's magical Kabbalah. We're talking just a way of life that creates a field of light around you, through some simple metaphysical practices. The simple one is becoming the living tree of life, what we call the three pillars. So beyond that, it gets a little much, but a little complicated to do in a minute or two.
Yeah, I don't think we could possibly describe it all.
But think about placing the name of God on you, so you become the living tree of life, and that gives you tremendous amount of protection from the darkness, but also generates a tremendous amount of light in your life. And that's
now
probably
you also
the simplest way of talking about it. Yes.
You also incorporated the Sundance Native American into somehow blending with that, right? So, or in a search for it, or is that what you did?
Kind of backing up a little bit.
Okay.
The Sundance came after kind of awakening spiritually, but my way of being is to take on challenges. Okay, so my 7 years in India was the key to kind of waking up, what we call being liberated, as my two gurus told me. Not that I would make a claim, but that's what they said. So, and then after that, I did a 40-day spiritual fast and went even further, in which God spoke to me and said, go to your roots. Okay, so that took me back into more of the Jewish way, and then somehow I got guided to also do Sundance. Now, what's interesting is Native American, some of the Native American tribes feel that they're some of the lost tribes. The Choctaw, the Cherokee, in specific, feel that they're actually some lost tribes of Israel. So there's an overlap. I spoke to one grandmother who remembered, Cherokee grandmother, who remembered her grandparents speaking Hebrew. So there's a lot more going on in the whole thing. My interest in Sundance is I like the Native American way. I was kind of attracted to it. When you're kind of at a certain place in spiritual life, you're free to go in any direction. So I didn't do it for, you're never done, first of all. You're always starting over. Very important principle. So you're never done with the spiritual path. And this was a way of experiencing particularly the elements of spiritual courage, spiritual endurance. And in the Sundance, you're dancing to uplift humanity, which is a big part of my work. We have over 100 programs in 26 different countries. Diabetes prevention, organic, veganic farming, but I've also done Kabbalat Shabbats for 13 different tribal people in Nigeria. Tribes, lots of people in Nigeria. So I'm flowing in all the different directions because awakening the what we call the Ruach HaKodesh, or Holy Spirit, is a very, very important part of the mission. So literally here I am in Owerri, which is in Nigeria, the starving people Biafra, who's in that area. And I'm working with the king, I'm staying in his house, and so I said, what are all these Jewish stars doing here? He said, well, that's where we come from. That's our tradition. We've lost it. So I said, fine, gather all the tribes together, because he was head of like 13 tribes in the region, and I said, we're going to have a Kabbalat Shabbat. Done. So there's a flow. Things are a lot more interwoven than one thinks. A few days later, when I was leaving, the king's father was 111 years old, was still flying high from the Kabbalat Shabbat, but also what we call the Ruach Kadesh, the ability to awaken the spiritual energy. So there's a constant play. Now, as we talk today, it's called, I studied the Torah, I was learning, and Shemot is called names. And if you know your name, you understand your face and the face of God. So my name is Gabriel Ben Ram, my kind of Hebrew and English name. Obviously, Gabriel is my name. And that means Gabriel is the power of God on all levels. And Ben Ram is sort of to elevate. So my name tells me my purpose, which is to use the power of God to elevate humanity spiritually. Now, isn't that interesting? Okay.
Very
so
interesting.
That's where it interfaces, if that makes sense. So that's where Kabbalah interfaces with the Native American, interfaces with the yogic.
So you feel your life mission is already stated in your name.
Correct. And I'm playing it out. But the truth is, I didn't really get what I just shared till today, when I started playing with the name. Your name is the unique expression of the face of God. So your face and your name are unique expression of the divine. And so helping people come to that understanding with themselves and understanding their name is a key for them reaching their highest evolutionary potential, which is the main point in my life. People kind of identify me as a liberated spiritual mystic. So I work in those realms. In the Sundance.
You're a holistic mystic.
Yes, I like that. I didn't think about that. That's good. So in the Sundance, which is 4 years, you dance for 4 days without food and water for 4 years. Okay.
Now, when you say dance, Gabriel, what do you mean? You said you're hanging from a tree?
Well, you're not exactly hanging from a tree. What you are is you're tied to the tree, and you're dancing in a circle around the tree.
That must be exhausting.
Yeah, particularly if you don't do it with food and water, right?
But that's when you go in your trance, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So in the fourth
And may I ask you here very quickly, is this where the temporal lobe comes in?
You're really transcending the brain. You're really in pure spirit, okay?
Is the temporal lobe the place where that all kind of takes place?
Yes. Yeah, on the physical plane. But
yeah, on the physical plane, I know, yeah.
You're on another level. So basically, there's generally about 60 to 80 of us different times. And I was really the only one for 4 years to go without food and water. And in the fourth year, in the eagle dance, the hooks are in your chest the whole time. So
what is again? What was that?
You have hooks.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah, there's pegs. The pegs are wood, are about like my finger. Can you see that?
Yes.
So you have in each there, not women. Women do it their shoulders, but you know, it's there, and there's a rope tied around each peg that goes to the tree. So you're tied to the tree.
Anyone that ever saw the movie,
sense?
Yeah, there's that. I can't remember the name of the movie. It was one of my favorite,
right.
but that's the first time I saw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay.
It's at that level, but they didn't. You weren't suspended by the tree. You were tied to the tree. You're hooked to the tree.
Still so painful.
Well, not really. You know,
honestly,
once the hooks are put, the things are put in, you kind of go beyond that. Okay, I'll just put it that way. It's. I think it's very magical in a way. At one point in the eagle dance, fourth year of doing this, I was, again, the only one without food and water, and everybody had kind of left the field, and I was the only one there to go tie the tree. And they just got the drums going, and I just started dancing ecstatically. Now, what happened? Something got reversed. I got stronger instead of weaker at the end of the dance. At the end, you break, like you pull back and it pulls the hooks pull out. Okay.
Okay.
No, it's not like that exactly. It's not that bad. But I did a backflip. You know, I was so full of energy and feeling so good. And so you're doing it to uplift the world. That's the Native American way. And it's courage, bravery, physical, you know, all those things. So, but since that time, it's reversed something in me. So at age of 77, that's my current chronological age, you know, I'm doing 1,100 push-ups 3 times a week.
That's
You get what I
great.
just said? Okay.
1,100
I'm
push.
getting more stronger, more flexible. Yeah, at one time. But I'm more flexible and stronger and have more endurance. How did that happen? I suspect something happened. I mean, that was like 17 years ago with the ending of the spirit dance, of the Sundance. Something happened, and there's a place where you go beyond your idea of limitation. And so take assumptions. People assume, oh, I'm getting older, therefore I'm getting weaker, and I'm getting stiffer, and it's just the opposite if you go that way. If that makes sense. Once you break through your assumptions of how it's supposed to be, then you can be truly where you can be. And so I'm saying it not to brag, I'm saying it, wow, age 77, when I was playing football.
Yes, I read that. That was interesting. How does a
but I
football
could do 60 push-ups. I could do 70 push-ups. And about 10 pull-ups. So at this age, I've done 100, as I mentioned, 1,100 push-ups. Toes, I was so stiff in college, and also high school, but stiff in college. Now I can sit in full lotus. I can put my palms on the ground. So there's a message, and this is why the Sundance Eagle dance was so powerful. It was, do you have the courage to go beyond your mental limitations to actually get stronger, more flexible, and clear with age? It was very powerful effect of me that's continued. So that's how I kind of see it. And each of these paths require a certain amount of, let's see if I can say it the right way, certain qualities. The Native Americans are a little bit more courage focused. So that's generally not that easy for most people, right? Not that easy to go without
probably not even that easy for many of the Native Americans that are aging to do what you can do. So
well, the truth is, I was the only one to never leave the circle and to continue the energy. And so my Sundance chief loved me. It's good, you know.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, yes, that's the point. So then you have the yogic and going beyond the mind. And then if we really look at the meaning of the name, I'm going to explain something else that gives you an idea of the Kabbalah and different things. So when you know your name, there's the ani, that's Hebrew meaning I-ness, okay? But then you go from I-ness to ein, the nothing. So when we truly get the depth of this, from knowing your name, you can go beyond to the primordial place where there is no name. You see, and that's really into the nothing.
Okay, now you confused me.
Yeah, it is.
You're okay, so
we go to I am this, I am that, I'm a man, I'm a woman. Those are identifications. Then we go into I am, and then we go to I-ness. Okay, and at this point, The only way we go further is to go beyond the mind into the nothing. So the I-ness disappears. So in the Kabbalistic teaching is you can't know God and live. Think about that. So you disappear. That's what it means going into the nothing. There can't be a distinct you there.
And so Gabriel, do you feel then that the nothingness is God then? I mean,
yes,
is that
but
basically
there's no you left. There's
right?
no place
And
to be
that's what really, really scares people. I mean, that's what scares the crap out of people is no more you, you know. That's why nothingness is so terrifying for so many people. So I can imagine that for many people this is a truth that would be absolutely agonizing. But on the other hand, I think that how liberating to know that the you does not have to be important anymore, that it can be one with God without having to have you be the person that always is different and away and separate from everyone else. You are at last one, which is kind of like, is that the same as nirvana? Is that the same as the India?
So let me, you use it in Indian terms, I have to explain. So when you go into the, let's say, higher, what we call levels of the mind, you go to, and you reach non-causal love, non-causal bliss, non-causal joy, non-causal oneness, no cause. Okay? That is what we're talking about as nirvana. And that you don't have to be liberated from that, but that is like a high level of being.
Okay.
When you're in those states most of the time, that's where you're passing over into what we call self-realization. Does that make sense what I'm saying? But you can have that without that. Well, I mean, I experienced it playing football.
Yeah.
I would go beyond.
Well, yeah, I'm the zone. It's called the zone, right? The zone.
No,
when you're in football
quite.
and sports. Different?
A little bit, but it's more than the zone.
Okay.
Because you ceased in a certain way to exist and you're part of the whole. Whereas a zone, you're in a zone. You're just
euphoric place usually.
That's right.
Euphoric, where the whole world disappears and time disappears. Yeah. And that's kind of like the zone.
Yeah, or maybe.
Well, but
people use different terms. I think a lot of athletes use it as. I also was a tennis player, tournament tennis player, and we play tennis, and you kind of go into the zone. You just are like in total synchrony and total peace. You just in the flow, but there's still a you. You follow what I'm saying here?
Yes,
but what
absolutely.
I'm talking about, this is beyond that. What I'm talking about.
So the nothing. You just are the peace. You just are the flow. You are that calm in the storm. Right.
Yeah. But there's no you. There's just that. You're prior to time, space, and energy. It's just an awareness. But
it's
there's
a beautiful
no body.
Thought.
So in that state, I've had like 2 hernia operations without anesthetic. How does that happen? Because in yoga, the 5th stage of yoga is called pratyahara, where you go beyond the senses. Yeah, that's easy. Boom, go beyond the senses, but you're still there, if you get what I'm saying. So there are levels of all this, but there's a level where you can go beyond the senses. I like to test myself. So, okay,
some people would call that. Some people.
How good are you here?
Some people would call that self-hypnosis, also. But I understand. No.
Yeah, I think it crosses over, but it's really not the same. It's meditation. As you go deeper in meditation, your body disappears. So your senses disappear.
So you kind of enjoy the idea of having pain without any kind of identification with it. Is that correct? If you're doing
Well, no,
hernia
there's no pain. There's
operations,
no pain.
right,
There's no pain.
that's what I mean though. If you can do things like Sundance and ripping back and hernia operations without any kind of identity with the pain, it almost seems like you say you love challenges, then that is one of your challenges. It appears to be as well.
Right. But I want to clarify again, I think we're saying the same thing. There's no pain at that level.
Right. All right. So, what is the most single message that you are communicating in your book, Gabriel?
So in my book, I don't know, I can hold it up. I don't know if you can see it.
There it
Okay.
is.
Yeah.
Yes, I have it on your blog as well.
Good. Is to take all life experiences as an opportunity to grow spiritually. That's it. It is the assumption that whatever God does is for the best. So whatever's happening to you in your life is for your best, is for your spiritual involvement. That only works if you see it that way. So things happen, and then you can say, poor me, oh, I'm oppressed, I'm whatever, or you can say, wow, this elevated me spiritually. So one of the big messages in my book is learning to take all of life's experiences in a way that elevates you spiritually. So it's a very practical thing. I mean, obviously it's a journey of a lot of different things, but when you look at the whole journey as it comes together, it's all about my spiritual elevation as a result of my life experiences. In India, we call Guru Tattva, the world is the guru. And it's like on that level, it's like that's probably the most important thing. You don't get polarized, you just, whatever's happening, you're using it to expand your consciousness.
Okay. So practical spiritualism, in a sense, in learning how to buck up and face the fact that every experience, good or bad, that happens to you is a part of the frequency of your name, as well as what it is that your mission is supposed to be in this world as of God, and everything is exactly as it should be in the moment, good and bad, correct?
Except there's no good and bad.
There's no good and bad.
There's
Okay.
only the evolution of consciousness.
Okay.
So everything is about the evolution of consciousness. It's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing. It's just like, how do I use this to expand my awareness?
Right.
There's no judgment about good or bad. That's duality. This is non-dual.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Got it.
Just expansion of consciousness. Whatever it is, it's expansion.
So is this what motivated you to write your book, Gabriel? What is the prime reason that you felt?
Yeah.
Because everything I see you in is about being the doctor, is about being the herbal supplement guy that's out there. But I like this. I like the fact that there is a part of you that explains how you got to where you are. So what is the motivation of this book so different, not different, but different than the selling of the herbs?
Yeah. The other, well, I've written a total of 13 books. The Depression Free for Life, Conscious Eating, Spiritual Nutrition, How to Become a Superconductor of the Divine. It's really about a way of life. It's about a 100% vegan, at least 80% life food diet. Okay, so those are the foundations. What's different about this book is it was time to put it together and reflect back on life experiences to give people kind of a vision of what it can be if they choose to do that for themselves. Everybody has a unique path. This is not per se a spiritual path, but it's, when I use the word 6 foundations and 7 full peace, those are ways of living that can take you to liberation. And for everybody, it's a little bit different, but they're a way of being in the world. What I felt is it's time to do that. It's time to tell my story as a way of inspiring people. So I call it a
Right.
spiritual autobiography. It was just, this is part of my service. You know, just like there's a cure for diabetes, it's part of my service. So it was just at this age, at this time, it was time to share this thing. You know, we cover lots of areas, you know, sacred relationships and, you know, just, you know, not just diet, but a whole way of life that leads you beyond the mind. And at this stage, that was the motivation. It's just to be an inspiration for people and supporting them on the spiritual life, spiritual path.
Well, you certainly are. Um, so when you say that the holistic, liberated way, is this what you are defining it as? The vegan way, it definitely seems to be very, very conductive to why you can possibly do so many sit-ups or push-ups or
Yeah,
whatever. Do you feel?
it's definitely connected. I think when I call it the holistic way of liberation, okay, I'm looking at every aspect of our life. Many kind of spiritual paths put a focus on meditation or put a focus on different things. This is like a total approach. It's actually a lifestyle. It's focused on creating spiritual joy that helps you transcend everything, but includes every aspect of your life. That is the kind of a slightly different vision of spiritual life. You can find all these things in different places, but they're not like emphasized. Some paths, as I say, are just meditation. Some paths are karma yoga. This is all of it.
So
And
what
in an
are
integrated way.
can you give me kind of a rundown of the chapters of your book and how they interlace to give you the final crescendo?
So it really starts again with early life. I was born in Chicago and I had 1943. I had TB, and that's a death sentence. There was no treatment for
Yes, it
TB.
is.
Yeah, at that point, you know, and so my parents gave me a lot of love and focus. I stayed at home and obviously did well. Obviously, I'm here now, right?
Right.
So so the early chapters have to do with my earlier life and my kind of interest. Major turning point was when I was 16. My older brother, who I was very close with, was killed in a car accident. Now, what do you do with
Oh,
that? So, you know, it's about an expansion again, if you see what I mean. It's like that got me into meditation. That got me into building a heart-lung machine that was creating light, won the science fair, state science fair. So whatever I was doing, I was taking whatever was happening and kept going. And then at the age of 33, I was always searching. Okay, this is, so the earlier chapters are about that search. I was always searching for what is this all about? What's the meaning of death? Actually, is what I was searching for. And then when I met Swami Muktananda and I received what we call Shaktipat, which is the awakening of the Kundalini, or what we call in Kabbalah the Ruach HaKodesh, Holy Spirit energy. I ascended into the nothing for the first time. On the way down, a message rang out: you should learn to eat and live in a way that supports the Kundalini. So that guided me. You see where I'm going with this. So that guided me to begin studying that, and I got to my
could you
first book.
describe again what the Kundalini is again?
It's the
The Kundalini.
spiritual life force that is both cosmic but also stored within your own body, near the base of the spine, in
The
its
chakra,
potential.
that would be like the first chakra, so to
Well,
say,
below the first chakra. Okay.
below the first
Below
chakra.
the first
Okay.
chakra. And what we call the area of the three rivers. But the point is, when there's enough spiritual energy, it awakens and begins to spiritualize every cell, every organ, and all the chakra systems in the body, helping you become a superconductor of the divine. And diet comes in because when you don't eat meat, fish, chicken, or dairy, you don't have a blockage to the flow of the spiritual energy. So everything starts to weave together in that picture.
May I ask you something? Just want to ask you something real quick here. In the, how do I say, in the spiritual concept of being one with God, do you feel that not only is eating meat a not in sync with the chakras and the flow, do you feel that there is a moral issue as well contained in that? Is there a moral issue of
So
not
the answer,
killing, not eating?
the answer is yes. But from my point of view, it's how do you become a superconductor of the divine? We have
But that's
72
what
subtle
yours
energy
is.
channels called minds. Yeah.
Okay,
And meat, fish, chicken, and dairy, i.e., the energy of death, blocks the flow of
I
the
see.
spiritual energy.
I see.
Okay, so it's
I
not
see. I
from a
see.
moral place, but I can make a very good case of how it affects the climate, and all these things. But the
Sure.
prime thing, from my point of view, is
Not to
no
eat the
death.
energy of death.
Right.
Right. That's a very, very good concept. I like that.
Yeah.
So, I guess if I were to ask you at this point in your life, at the young 70-ish, do you feel like you could tell that young man back in the past anything that he worried about that you can give him complete peace on now? If the past, the present, and future are all one, is there anything you could tell yourself right now as a young man
It's
that,
a great question. Really great question. I would tell myself to totally trust the flow of the divine, which is kind of what I did. But that's one of the most important messages is, can we hear that soft voice of God and follow it and have no doubt about it? That's the way I've lived, but that's what I would emphasize. It works.
and the soft voice of God, how would you define that you heard that as a young man compared to now? How would you define to the average person what that soft voice of God is? I mean, how does one define
Sure.
that?
So when I was 4, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. No one in my family had any interest in medical, anything. And so, what am I doing? Question yourself. When I was 8, I began to visions of people in white robes. Began to question myself. At this point, I'm saying, don't question yourself. If it's going to elevate you spiritually, go for it, and don't pay any attention about what the world around you is saying. Now, the key part, so that is what I would say, because it's like, a lot of teenagers are pretty self-conscious. That's just part of the process. But beginning to trust that small, soft whisper is key. But if you aren't listening for it, it's hard to trust it. So at every
Would that be like
age,
trusting your gut? Would that be the same as trust your gut? Or is that different?
it overlaps with that, but actually, for example, I knew when I was 4. Okay, you got me. When I received Shaktipat, and I actually heard a voice. Learn how to eat the way, live the way supports community. After a 40-day fast, go to your roots. That was the voice. I mean, that's it. That was a total statement. Okay, but you learn to listen and follow that. And so I would say that to everyone. Well, there's a qualification. It should be aligned with all the spiritual teachings for the last, thousands of years. It should be aligned with your inner intuition and also with your, in a sense, spiritual teacher or collective. So there has to be some enlightenment, okay? Otherwise you get a Charles Manson type situation. So it has to have that alignment, but then within that alignment, it's very important to trust the subtle messages coming through as guidance for your life.
And so what I take that as, to kind of take it all full circle, is that I need to trust that every experience, good or bad, that comes into my life, I need to stop seeing it as good or bad and see it as evolution of Anne. And that my name contains, when I research it, my mission, just as Gabriel did for you. And that my job is to be able to listen to that soft voice within me that I am exactly where I am, at exactly the right place to be for my growth, and that in the meantime, it wouldn't hurt to read Gabriel Cousens' book on how to eat better so that we can be able to do push-ups and be, yeah, there you go. So Gabriel Cousens, thank you so much.
It leads to spiritual joy.
It
So
leads to
I
spiritual
talked about a lot about relationships in there. So most people think they depend on the other person to make them feel loved. Love, non-causal, comes from within ourselves. The other person can enhance that, but they're not the cause of it. So it also leads you to be much more independent in your life and have more healthy relationships.
I like that.
So, wow, where's that love coming? It's from you, but your other sacred other is activating that, but not the cause. So it's a whole way of being, living in a way that's constantly activating that love of the divine within yourself and yourself and outside of yourself as a way of, that's how it comes together.
So no more blaming someone else for saying, you make me miserable. You have to say to yourself, what am I doing to live a life where I have to create blame when I am the source of my choices and my living style and my sense of walking with God? So sort of like that.
And then use that experience to expand your consciousness. Say, okay, now I'm going to make some steps here to expand and elevate my consciousness based on what I'm.
Sounds good. Well, Gabriel, it was delightful to talk to you. You're a very comfortable person to have coffee with, and I thank you very much for being with us today.
People want to get in touch with me, and they just go to drcousens.com. That's the
Dr. Gabriel Cousens, Dr. Cousens?
Just drcousens.com.
All right, drcousens.com. Your book one more time. Hold it up, please.
Into the nothing.
And you can hear this fascinating story of this interesting man. All right, thank you so, so much. Have a wonderful evening and a good night's sleep, or it's late there.
But I have more to do. But anyway, I want to bless you for your good work. I want to bless all the listeners, that they be inspired to expand their consciousness in their lives, to expand the love in their lives, to expand the blessings in their lives, and walk as a blessing to the world.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, and have a wonderful life. And I pray that you be able to continue to be 80 and do as many push-ups as you can now.
Well, I'll be doing more by then.
Okay. Bye.